Ahlan wa sahlan, Kif Hal Dubai, how are we doing? The United Arab Emirates, this is your show host Rags, and you are tuned on to the Rags page. How's it going? I know I'm wearing all blue today, and I'm super excited. I have a beautiful friend on the other end sharing my screen today with me. Here I have with you Natalie, and I'm going to introduce her. I'm going to introduce you slightly different, if that's okay. I'm going to say Natalie, the woman who keeps our oceans going. I actually wrote this over and over again, and I wanted to give you that introduction, and I wanted to thank you on behalf of the UAE for doing such amazing work with our blues. Do you want to tell us? Do you want to tell us about what you do?
Sure. Thank you so much for the kind introduction to begin with. That's amazing. Thank you. So Araq is a not-for-profit, volunteer-based, registered marine conservation organisation. We're 3 years young in September. And so we've been working on conserving and protecting the local waterways as much as possible. So our first couple of campaigns that we sort of felt as though we could play a role in, particularly with marine debris. I know we can talk about that a little bit later and what that is, and I'm happy to go into all the details, whatever's required in touching base on that one. And of course, my background, I'm a scuba diver instructor, that's hence the PADI. But I've been involved in marine conservation for 7 years, but you could almost go longer than that, to the day that I started diving, which is when I fell deeply and passionately in love with our oceans. I'll tell you a very quick and short story for your listeners. Please. I was very fortunate in my first scuba diving training class to actually dive with a juvenile whale shark. And so, you know, I felt as though it was my calling, right, as I look back now, back in 2008, it was my calling to be moved to conserve and protect these amazing marine animals and their environment.
This is incredible. So I'm going to ask the viewers, whoever's done what she just said, do drop in a comment for us when you're watching us, because I know Natalie is going to be happy seeing you and she'll give you a thumbs up for that. This is great stuff. Wow. If you have pictures of anything that you want to share on the channel later on for our viewers, feel free, please. This is your stage. Come forward so our viewers can see a lot of all this.
Sure.
Okay, so shall we begin our interview? Your question number one, Natalie, should be, why is the ocean conservation important?
This is a really good question to start with, and it's a nice question to begin with. Our oceans give us every second breath that we take. When we look at where do we get our oxygen from, 50% of it comes from the oceans and 50% of it comes from our trees and our forests. So, and unfortunately, both the forests and our oceans are facing some hardship at the moment. If we go and just look at the oceans themselves, the oceans give us food if we eat seafood. They give us, particularly in the UAE, drinking water because they desalinate. We don't have any minerals or spring water here in the UAE. We get our water either shipped in or flown in from another country in water bottles, or we desalinate it and we have it on our taps, through desalinated water. They give us a wonderful recreational playground, and
of course,
and the air that we breathe. So they're vitally important, and for me, I love the oceans for so many reasons. But when we think about the reality of what the oceans provide human life, without oceans, we do not exist. Humans cannot exist without healthy oceans. It's a true but very sad and the reality. That's why I do what I do.
Wow, you are such an inspirer, Natalie, and I'm so grateful that you've so generously come forward and you said, no, you want to share the voice, because this is so important for our youth and for people like you and me listening in. See, I grew up in Dubai. I'm a Dubai kiddo. I'm born and raised from here. So I know when you said, also when you said a recreation ground, I also want to add, I do know of forefathers who literally, you know, had stories with pearl diving. Yes. So, you know, it's very heartwarming when I'm talking to you like this about it. And it is about the oceans, and it is very important. It is the need of the hour. So we're going to quickly move on to question number 2 for us. How can we contribute to conserve the ocean? What are a few tips from your end on how we can save the ocean as a community when we come together?
This is a question I've been pondering on for quite some time, and my answers have changed. So I'm going to give you the answer I'm at today. What I used to do was highlight all of the things you could do, and there are things like, removing plastic straws. We don't need straws. We definitely don't need plastic straws.
Sure.
And reducing our single-use plastics wherever possible, and all these types of tips and tricks. But as I delved into this, and I remember this is my day-to-day job, I do nothing but think about ocean conservation. It's not even a 9 to 5; it's my life, So when I'm not involved in ASRAC, I'm involved in taking people out diving to actually enjoy the ocean. So it's just my whole life is ocean conservation. And the reality is I've got to the point where I feel as though the answer to that question is to have an open mind, particularly as we get into adulthood. So when we think about how do we conserve and protect our oceans today, it requires a change of thought and a change of habit, a change basically. And for adults who have done things certain ways for a certain amount of years, they find that step to make a change can be really confronting and quite difficult sometimes.
Sure.
Particularly when we come to certain personality traits, for example. When we're looking at if we look at one of the biggest issues in the oceans, we're talking about plastics. And when we talk about how do people reduce their plastic, this is a really tough one. This requires change of habit, change of thinking. And often some personality types will go, well, I'm not making enough of a difference, or me just changing over a plastic straw isn't going to be enough to make a difference. And this is where I have to stop and place people on hold for a moment, because, and I say this story a lot, if you're one person, and if you are having 2 coffees at a takeaway coffee place every day for a year, and you choose to just swap that cup that you would normally get that is lined with plastic to a reusable, you're stopping just one person over 700 cups from going into landfill or the oceans. And if then you just get one other friend, you've just doubled it. And if they get a friend, and now you've got a snowball impact. And that's what ASRAC is all about. We are a grassroots entity. Our first mission was about the straw. And through our campaign, which we ran for a year to try and get local outlets to reduce or remove plastic straws from their operations, we've saved over millions of straws from going into landfill and the oceans annually. So far we've been around for 3 years. We've stopped almost 3 million straws. And we had schools and students that were in year 9 and 10 go out and ask their local outlets to consider changing over from the plastic straw. So this is the strength of community and the power of our purchase and our choices. So I think that to answer your question, the answer simply is to have an open mind and be prepared for change.
Wow, it's going to take a moment for all of this to take it in. So viewers, take it in. We need more of you, Natalie. We need more like you. I think everywhere, in every part of the world.
Thank you. But I think we need more imperfect people doing this as perfectly as they can. We can't be perfect in this space. We can just do the best that we can. And that's where I want to encourage your viewers to sort of have a moment and go, what legacy do I wish to leave in this space? Considering our first question, why
is it important in the first place? This is very nicely said. I'm going to not say anything after what you've said. I'm going to leave the viewers to that. So our question number 3, Now, who is Azraq and what's been the idea behind setting the campaign Azraq up? You have answered a little bit of this, but you might want to use this stage to say something more.
Sure. So in Arabic, Azraq means blue. And so we're simply about conserving and protecting the marine environment. And we do that through a range of activities that are set to educate, motivate, and activate the community towards ocean conservation. So when we talk about educate, that could be simply something like doing a presentation at a school on our missions and our campaigns. We've just yesterday announced our documentary screening of The Story of Plastic that we're screening in July. So we do documentary screenings as a way to educate and motivate people to make that change, to potentially have that change of thought and hopefully a change of habit that follows. So we do things like that. We also get involved with corporates and team building, and we do marine debris days where we remove rubbish from the coast, like beach cleanups. And diving cleanups. We do it through supping on kayaks. We sort of have partnered with entities that provide the equipment to help get out into the ocean where possible, not just on the beach. So you can do really nice team building days with corporates doing that.
Sure.
And we also have mangrove tree planting, because mangroves, particularly in the UAE, play a very important role in keeping our waterways healthy.
I know there's this place in Abu Dhabi particularly, right, where you have this whole mangrove, there is like a whole mangrove estate. Am I saying that right? Yeah,
yes.
I know, and it's quite a highlight even with visitors these days. I do hear a lot of people saying we're going to the mangroves, and I'd be like, oh, really? Okay,
yes,
it sounds fun.
So I have to admit, when coming from Australia, when I knew I was coming over to the UAE, mangroves were not something that I even thought about as being
yes.
Yeah, so you hear about the desert of the UAE.
Yes.
But we don't hear about them, and we've got some quite large hectares of mangroves in the UAE. So, but obviously, you know, through development, as in any country, we're going to have an impact. So replanting some of those mangroves is another component of what Azraq is all about.
You have full support from the team one-on-one with Rags, Natalie, and hopefully my production and I are going to be with you over at the mangroves, and we're going to do a nice food for us, for all of us.
It really is. I really enjoy our mangrove tree planting, because we also do follow that up with a kayak as well.
Right. And I'm so happy. I'm happy that you spoke about it. You know, like you said, people always link UAE to the desert. Guys, we have mangroves. She just said it. Okay, so question number 4. Can you talk us through these topics, please? Now, I was reading about Azraq, and you have to tell my viewers about apex harmony.
Okay, so apex harmony is about protecting our apex predators, which is, for me, our sharks. So my background, when I was working in Australia, I was very much involved in shark conservation. In Australia, we have all those things that sting and bite and nip in our waterways. And so we, unfortunately with that, the beauty of the ocean, unfortunately with that, we also have fatalities from those marine creatures. And so there is a fear, a very inset fear of sharks, particularly in some of the states. And I used to live in Western Australia, where great white sharks encounters and fatalities were an issue. We had a cluster of them in 2013, 2014. And so for the surfers, the divers, you know, anyone who's a beach lover, it's always at the back of your mind. But then you sort of like bringing in my experience as a diver and seeing that amazing whale shark. It actually is a shark. It's not a whale. A whale shark is a shark. And the reef sharks that I saw, and then these wonderful other like leopard sharks and wobbegongs and all these other types of sharks. It's unfortunate that we have 3 species particularly which have the serrated teeth that cause the blood loss that takes the life of a beach user. So what Apex Harmony really is about is educating. When we go to schools, we often find that the young children have generally, not always, but generally have a love of sharks. It's like pirates. It's almost
They
like
do.
that. They're a little bit,
Yeah.
they're very cool, right?
They're very fascinated with sharks. You're right. Yeah.
And so they have lots of questions and they want to understand, and you know, you get an amazing opportunity to educate on what makes a shark, and to bring in, to take away and hopefully stop fear from ever being introduced into their lives. We need to have a respect for sharks and what sharks are about, just like we do when it comes to dogs like Rottweilers. They can take a life, but the reality is that it's very, very rare. Most sharks, including the white sharks, are more fearful of us than we are of them. The attacks are extremely rare, but unfortunately when they do happen, they can be fatal. So what we wanted to do is talk about the importance of sharks in our oceans, why sharks are there, they are, and what makes them what's called a keystone species. Because as an apex predator, if you remove sharks from the ocean, science has shown that there will be a collapse in the marine ecosystem. So we need sharks. Getting back to your question.
We need sharks. We need sharks.
Humans,
incredible.
Yeah. So that's what Apex Harmony is all about.
That's amazing. Okay. What about marine debris? Now I know this is a very understated topic, spoken highly. You know where I'm getting to, so you can fill in the blanks now for us. Marine debris.
When it comes to marine debris, it's an interesting topic. It's very topical. A lot of people are talking about banning single-use plastics because we all start to see the impacts of plastics on our oceans. But I often find when it comes to trying to define what marine debris is, it's like talking to someone about climate change. It's such a massive subject. And what we've tried to do with our marine debris campaign is not just have the campaign marine debris, but bring in missions underneath that campaign and actions. So when I talked about our straw campaign, or mission, that sits under the marine debris campaign, because what we want to do is highlight what marine debris actually is. And how we go about that is where we try and highlight the top issues or the top items that we find along a coastline when we do our beach cleanups. Not just in the UAE, but globally. And so most of these are single-use plastic, and unfortunately most of them belong to the food, beverage and packaging industries. So things like the straws, the water bottles, the plastic bags, the takeaway containers, the lids, the plastic lids that go on plastic water bottles. These are the things that we find, utensils, plastic utensils. And I dare say when we go back out there when the humidity is not as high as 81% as it is today, for our cleanups again, we're going to find a whole heap of single-use masks and gloves as well now. Which is a sad part on an element of the COVID-19 pandemic. So
Sure, it makes sense. Dolphin Defense.
So Dolphin Defense is one of our lovely campaigns. It was introduced because when we formed, one of our board members was an avid dolphin lover, and we have now a new board member, same situation. Dolphins also tend to be one of those animals that if you don't like sharks, you generally love dolphins. We are very lucky in the UAE to have the Arabian humpback dolphin endemic to this country. And when I landed in the UAE, before we formed ASRAC, I was very much aware of the UAE Dolphin Project here. And we quickly aligned ourselves and partnered with them, because what we're doing with this campaign is bringing science into this campaign. So UAE Dolphin Project doing a lot of surveys to try and understand the movements, the population, the behaviors of the dolphins in this country. And they are focused on seeing whether or not there is a need or a requirement for marine protected areas. And so ASRAC wants to obviously see if we can align ourselves, and we have had our volunteers assist with their surveys since we've formed, since our partnership. But also too, we're talking about dolphins and the amazing experiences dolphins can bring in the wild. Again, you know, just seeing dolphins on the ocean, no matter the type of person you are, if you are out on a boat or you see, just even from the coastline, you see dolphins breaching, or you see them playing, or you see just even the dolphin fin, nearly everybody points it out and goes, amazing. So dolphins, I mean, again, I'm a diver. I've experienced some wonderful things in the oceans, particularly with dolphins. So yeah, that's about dolphins in the wild and science and understanding the populations and movement of dolphins here in the UAE.
We have lots to cover. My next one was magic mangroves.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, magic mangroves. So magic mangroves, we've actually just recently announced, and we touched on this previously. It's about planting the mangroves and trying to reintroduce the forests that were once huge along the UAE coast, and we're doing that with government. So this is a government-led initiative throughout the Emirates. So we have mangroves throughout the whole of the UAE. So it's not just in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi tends to be the well-known, most populated ones, but we also work in Ajman on this, and mainly in Ajman. Which I was really surprised when I went down there to see the mangrove population there.
Incredible, incredible. I love how ASRAC has cased all of this in one. So this is literally what makes you guys what you are, you know.
Yes.
Well done. I love your work. Next question. How can fishing gear and techniques be improved to minimize habitat damage? I like this question. This is one of my...
it's a really good question, and one you can really get your teeth into, because nearly every way of fishing can have an impact, even just from missed hooks. Things like abandoned fishing nets, which are called ghost nets, impact our oceans severely. So when a net gets lost, or for some reason is intentionally left behind, it entraps marine life, and it can do for years. And it's like a curtain that sits in the ocean, and as marine life migrate or move, they just get, unfortunately, it's like, you know, this should be their space, and it should be harmonious for them, as far as I'm concerned. And unfortunately, they're having to deal with so many issues in their home, in their environment, caused by, unfortunately, human behaviour. But when it comes to fishing techniques, often it's culture and tradition that have come into the conversation about this. And I know in the UAE, they have actually successfully been able to ban some of the traditional ways of fishing, which is a big move here.
Which is a big move. I agree.
It's huge. Coming from Australia, we have Indigenous Australians who have an exemption to fish for turtles and dolphins because they're Indigenous. Sorry, not dolphins, dugongs. Now, these animals are heading towards extinction, and we need to have a serious conversation as to, okay, 150 to 200 years ago, it may have been suitable and not have so much of an impact. But 200 years later, we now need to have a serious conversation about, again, what is the legacy we're leaving behind, and what are we giving to the next generation? And that needs to come into the mix when it comes to respecting tradition and culture, but also to talking about our future. And there needs to be a happy medium.
Sure.
So I think fishermen and the fishing industry, we need to be careful in terms of the impacts, and it can be done. For me, I think the oceans need a break. But that's not realistic. It's not realistic. And so we need to ensure it's sustainable moving forward.
I hope my viewers have listened to that part really well, loud and clear. And you've highlighted the high points beautifully. Thank you. Um, our next question. How can the benefits of tourism to marine ecosystems be maximized while minimizing the negative impact?
Now, I saw this question because thankfully you gave me a highlight of the questions you're going to ask.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, well done for actually adding this question in, because I often don't get asked it, and it's an important one to talk about. So there's two things I wanted to highlight when answering this question. One is ecotourism, and we're already starting to see ecotourism actually come about. And it's, again, getting back to my experiences in the ocean as a diver, you can fall passionately in love with the marine environment and eventually be moved to give up your full-time job and work as a volunteer for a not-for-profit of your own, and go on and follow your own.
Of course.
So the importance of being out into the oceans, but also minimizing the impact, as you rightly said, is important. So ecotourism, I think, plays an important role here. So licensed and registered entities that ensure that they're minimizing the impacts as much as possible. And then I think there's an opportunity, and this is where our Dolphin Defense campaign comes in, to move away from cetaceans in captivity, and even in moving away from potentially aquariums. Now, this is a really controversial topic, because I know when I was 12, I was taken on a school trip to an aquarium, and it was the first time that I saw a grey nurse shark, even though I lived along the coastline.
You were from Australia. This is very interesting.
So, and I remember seeing it for the first time, and I'm not going to say that it would be a lie that, oh my gosh, I was moved to save it or do anything about it. I just remember looking at this grey nurse shark that looks quite menacing, yet realizing how majestic this animal was. And as I said, I was 12 and I didn't really think much of it, but I still have this vivid memory. And there is an opportunity for education. That is a component in that space. But then we have documentaries like Blackfish that highlight the issues of cetaceans in captivity, for example. And I feel as though with new technology, we could do the same thing now through virtual reality and move away from taking animals out of their natural environment and putting them in an unnatural environment, which science has proven does impact the animal itself. So I think we need to embrace technology here, bring in the new, and try to create the exact same experience and educational element for those people who can't get into the oceans and see it themselves, or aren't nearby a coastline, for example. So I think that's a great way of making a difference in terms of minimizing impacts.
This is, oh my God, this is amazingly said. And you've done justice to my question. I had to say, you've done justice to my question. Thank you for that, Natalie. You know, I know the viewers are taking away lots more than what I've promised in this interview. All thanks to you. I know there are some of them are going to choke, some of them are going to have goosebumps, but that's the idea. We're just waking up to this reality. Okay, question number 7, Nat. What are the best methods and tools available to engage citizens from your part in marine conservation?
What are the best tools to engage citizens? So one of the best tools would be, for me, education and awareness. If we're not aware of the issue, then we're not going to know that we need to do something different, or the impacts, for example. And so, and again, this goes back to what Araq, being a grassroots organisation, is all about. We do presentations in schools, but we also do a whole heap of traditional and social media campaigns where we're highlighting issues regularly through those mediums. And also, again, this is where things like our movie screenings come in place, because people often walk away. I could tell you right now, and your listeners and viewers right now, a whole heap of things, but vision does another thing altogether.
I agree. I always say that, show and tell.
Yes.
Always
So
well.
they often say that the best tool that a conservationist can have is a camera. And so, yeah, so for me, the vision is just something that I think can really help change people's mindset. And I often know that when I've spoken to friends of mine who may not, they may sit on the fence when it comes to ocean conservation. It may not be so, they're definitely not as passionate as what I am.
Sure.
You know, they sort of sit on the fence of it, and then they'll come up to me and go, oh, and they'll take a photo and they'll show me their new reusable cup, for example, and I'll have a hashtag, which is, my name's Natalie, but make Nat proud. So they'll often have this hashtag that they will send me something that they've done. But I've also had colleagues that I've taken to these movies that were screened, and a week later they've made the change. So it could be a year just through talking, or it could be a week where vision has helped with that element. So the best tool, I think, is education, for sure.
Nice, nice. And coming back to what you started with, you did mention open your minds.
Yes.
So education and opening our minds, I think this just sits in perfectly. It's perfect balance.
Absolutely.
So yeah. See, I've taken so much from this interview. Okay. How do you measure the success of marine conservation initiatives and policies? This is a slightly technical question. You might just want to tell our viewers in very, very easy terms, you know, so they relate.
So I'm going to admit and say I don't think we have this perfect yet ourselves. So
okay, which is good. Yeah. Which is.
And this is probably the hardest one for Araq to actually.
I agree.
Around. But we need, for me, if we're talking about change, and we're talking right from the beginning, we're talking about change of habits, change of thinking, then we need to record what it's like at the current stage. How many straws are we using in operations currently, for example? And then if we change over, if we say, okay, we're not going to put these straws on the table anymore, we're going to put them behind the bar and only provide them when people request them. How many straws are you now giving out? And then how much money have you saved? So when it comes to marine conservation and the changes that people need to make, often it is what is in it for me, WRFM. So we need to, often when it comes to businesses, we need to look at the bottom line. So if there is a savings to be made, then we have got a more serious conversation that we can have with managers and owners of retail outlets or of cafes and restaurants or the hospitality industry, for example. It can't just be because they're passionate like I am. You know, they have a business to run.
Nicely said. Nicely said, Natalie. It makes sense.
Yeah. So measurement is the hardest one. And as I said, I don't think we've got that right yet. And I think there's room for improvement in our own operations in that. But I know that, for example, when we talked about the straw campaign, when we had Jumeirah Restaurant Group come on board, I was able to know we were saving millions of straws back from that.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So you start small. See, any measuring can happen anytime, but we have to start from somewhere. So I think you've summed this up really beautifully. And it makes sense. You know, we're always looking at the bigger picture, and we tend to forget, and we tend to like dash out on from where we started. So I love what you said, and this is actually very important. It's going to give an insight to my viewers, I'm sure. So guys, start.
So ocean, we've already said that the issue with oceans is such a big field, and we've got no choice but to start small. We can't really save the oceans in one go. We need to, you know, we need to take steps. And when we're talking about government changes and industry changes, and our own,
those are big. Those are big. Those are big. Yeah. Okay, so now this one gave me goosebumps when I was writing. You know what's coming. So the deep ocean is warming slowly, but dramatic changes are ahead. Tell us more about this. This is very deep, and it's going to move so many viewers already.
Yes, well, I hope so.
I'm sure.
Yes, so just I know that you've written it. Just remind me of the statement again. You talked about oceans warming, didn't you, just then? Yeah.
Sorry,
So
yeah. The deep ocean is warming slowly, but
Yeah.
dramatic changes are ahead.
Yes.
So
it's very difficult to predict what is going to happen as our oceans go through the changes and the adaptations that are taking place. So when it comes to the UAE, we are in a very interesting location of the world because we have the Arabian Gulf, which is the salinity in the Arabian Gulf is quite high. And we have scientists around the world investigating this issue alone and how it may impact their own countries because salinity is rising. We also have, in the Arabian Gulf, quite high water temperatures, particularly during the summer, where it's like a bath when you get into the water in the ocean. And I know, again, scientists around the world are studying this because they're looking at the temperatures of the UAE waters and how it may impact their own countries as well. And what they're finding out, and I only know this because of talking to the New York University in Abu Dhabi and their scientists there, is that marine life, from not just as in the animals themselves, but also the plants, are making adaptations, and they're adapting themselves to survive. This is coming back to the survival of the fittest, right?
Wow,
Whilst there are animals that will unfortunately go extinct, extinction is a reality. There is, and it's very, very sad. I mean, it will probably end up being, from the science again, the larger megafauna that will suffer the most. Unless, again, they are able to adapt. So whilst there is science saying this may happen, this might happen, there is nothing confirmed as to what will potentially happen. We haven't even touched the surface when it comes to exploring the oceans and the depths and what creatures are below. So we don't even know half of the creatures that could actually be in our oceans right now. But I am aware that there are animals that are able to adapt themselves to survive these harsher climates that they're facing, which, you know, comes back to Darwinism and the survival of the fittest. So I'm somebody who will always be optimistic and hopeful, because without hope, we're hopeless, and we make. And that means what? We sort of shrug and we say, okay, well, too bad, and we all give up our Araq no longer exists, and we all give up our hopes. I can't imagine. I have to, for the next generation, have hope. And I do have hope, particularly for the next generation, because when I speak with them, they understand this topic way better than what I did at their ages or what my grandparents did. This wasn't even in my grandparents' mind at the ages that it is at the forefront of children's minds today. Araq has just announced a youth ambassador program, because we know that the decisions we make today impact the youth of tomorrow. And they need to have a voice at our operational decision making, because we leave this planet to them, and they're going to be the ones that fix it.
Beautifully said. Maybe what I'm going to do from my end is, after this interview, if you have any links which you want us to push out from the channel, please, we would love to do that for you, and we would love to do that for our oceans, and we would love to do that for our youth. And
so I'm going to recommend already to your viewers now, if that's okay.
Yes, please go ahead.
On Instagram, our partner's Kids for a Better World by Sagarika. She is doing some amazing, she's 14, and she's doing some amazing work with youth in the UAE today. And then you've got Connect with Nature, which is underneath the WWF banner. And they're doing some amazing programs to get youth connecting or reconnecting with nature also. But, you know, those are the two that stand out for me in the UAE.
Yeah, yeah. Your voice is powerful, and many are going to be hearing this, and many are going to be tapping in there. So, wake up, youth, and wake up, people like me and Natalie. This is the right time. Okay, so I could go on forever and ever with you, and maybe we'll take you again on another topic. But for now, my finale question. So, Azrak, what would be your parting words for Dubai and the globe, since we are an international channel now? Um, my final lines will be think globally, but act locally.
Yeah. That's also part of Azraq's mission as well. But yes, so
Yes.
my parting words, if we go
Yes.
back full circle and we talk about how important the oceans are for humanity, and that is the small changes that we can make that can lead to big ones. And we do need to all make small changes and keep an open mind and keep about change of thinking, change of habit at the forefront. I think the next step after that is to encourage others to do the same. So where there may be the opportunity for change, what usually holds people back is fear. A fear of failure, a fear of not succeeding, a fear of not doing it properly. And we cannot make a mistake if we are trying to be truly benefiting the oceans. We need to be imperfectly perfect when it comes to this space. And we need to allow people to be imperfectly perfect, because we can't be perfect in this space now.
You know, Natalie, I'm glad you're saying that. Sorry, can I take a small moment and tell you something? So I had a friend, you know, and when we spoke about this, and I told her, you know what, I'm going to be interviewing, this is a big thing for me, doing this with Azraq, and we're talking about the oceans. And so the first of reaction, and I always believe in speaking reality and keeping it very, very organic and crisp. So she shrugged and she said, but you know, I don't think we really know so much about the ocean. So I now relate to what you just said. So it's also the fear of not knowing enough, you know, because, you know, so I just thought I can just like chip in that little thing. So this has happened very recently, you know, and she just shrugged, and it was a very natural reaction. And she said, but there's really nothing we know about it. And I said, yes, that's why, you know, we're studying and we're speaking to these gurus to come out there and to tell us about the ocean. Sorry, I just thought I wanted to add that.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And it does tap into that whole fear of you know, that holds people back from taking a change. But we all do know something about the oceans. You know, we all do know something. We all, unless we are living under a rock, we all will have heard that plastics are impacting the oceans, one way or the other. We may not be doing anything about it. That might not be something at the forefront of your mind, but like we all know something. And if there's something that we can do to make it better, and we are able to, then what is holding us back? And that usually is fear. And what I'm hearing from your friend is also a fear of being judged.
I agree. I agree. And I'm glad you said it.
So we need to encourage people, you know, and to put aside our egos and sort of, and I keep saying this regularly, there's not enough encouragement and there's too much ego in the environment movement. We need to go, okay, you are at a different stage to what I am, because I don't
absolutely
know what I do, because I'm a nerd and I read scientific papers.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
But let me take you where you are, and let me come on a journey with you, you know, and let's do this together. And that's what I'm going to leave with your listeners, is that I will be your biggest supporter. Just tag me in it, and shout out to the rooftops about the things that you're doing, and we'll help to make that louder. And then if we can encourage together, then we've started a movement. And it is so as simple as that. Really, we just need to talk louder and put aside the fear and the fear of being criticized and judged, and think about the reasons we want to do the things we're doing anyway, and find your support army that quietens the critics.
I'm going to leave my viewers with one thing. So not only do you tag Natalie and Azraq to this, but what you're going to do is please, if you like this interview and if you like the voice of what we have just brought forward to all of you, do tag more and more friends to this interview, because like Natalie clearly and rightly pointed out, it's not about our egos. It's not about anything else, but we all have to make this start. And we could be no voice. We could be just starting out, we could be beginners, but we all have to do this together. So those were my parting words.
Amazing. It's been lovely chatting with you, Rags.
Likewise, Natalie. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for such valuable tips that you've set out. And we're definitely going to work together from now on. And we are tagging each other. But now you and I are going to take a step behind. We're going to wait and we're going to breathe in and we're going to see how many of them are tagging people. So we need to make a chain reaction now.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about the oceans.
Yeah. So I'd like to start a hashtag going called Marine Conservation Courage.
Sure. So I'm also going to make a note of this one quickly. So it's called Marine Conservation Courage. Got this one. Okay. So Natalie, stay with me. Don't go anywhere. I'm gonna like just switch off the recording button now. And thank you, everyone. Thank you, UAE, and thank you all our viewers from all over the globe. This interview is going to benefit all of us everywhere, wherever you are. Wake up and work on this now. So just a minute. Let me stop our recording.